Yesterday we arrived in Alnmouth in Northumberland. This is my son and I to walk along the Northumberland coast. Now, this isn't about breaking records, this is about making memories. This time last year, a walk like this would have been a walk in the park for me. This year, it's a bit of a challenge. Let's see how we go. And because we got the cheapest train from Sheffield, we had to change at Doncaster and Newcastle. Next stop, Alnmouth. Once one of England's busiest little ports, a huge storm in 1806 changed the course of the River Aln almost overnight. Today, it's one of the prettiest villages on the coast. But have you ever been somewhere that feels it was bigger in history than it is today? And as you can see, it's got this magnificent beach that runs forever. And this is August, peak tourist season. And look, there is almost nobody here. And this forms the start of our walk. Leaving Alnmouth behind us, we're heading for Craster, and then Seahouses, and then on to Holy Island. And this forms part of the Northumberland coastal path and also part of the English coastal path. We have the first 2 days where we should be covering about 10 to 12 miles per day, finishing off with a 20-mile plus hike for the last day. And here we're just taking a look at this Second World War bunker that's set into the ground to save us from the German warships that would be out at sea pounding the towns and villages with their ships' guns. All a little bit hidden behind the foliage now, but these days we've got other flying objects to be careful of. And as the name suggests, this path follows the coast pretty much all the way around, and often you find it easier to walk along the beach than actually along the path. I guess that's when the tide is out. And we cross what must be some of the prettiest beaches I've ever seen in the UK. And again, with next to nobody on them. But you do have to be able to find them. And here's our first stop on the journey. It's a pretty fishing village called Craster, famous for its kippers, where they still make them today, where they have been making them for hundreds of years. Up we have Dunstanburgh Castle, which was built about 700 years ago by the Earl of Lancaster. Now at the time he was one of the richest people in the country, and it makes me wonder because he built this fortress as a show of his strength and power, but he tried to overcome the king, King Edward II, but he got caught and he got executed, so he only lived another 10 or so years after building this castle. And yet, if he just stayed with his might and wealth, he would have lived a long and healthy life. The Ship Inn, a lovely traditional English pub. What a great place for lunch. And these kilns, built into the side of the harbour walls, were used for making clay pots for catching crabs and lobsters and things like that. And as you can see, these were real fishing villages. There's not much here for tourists except for the real deal, the real thing. Nothing fake here, it's just how it was. And here in Seahouses is where we spend our second night, and this tribute here to the fishermen and lifeboatmen of the area, showing us the way to go. Let's see if I can make that a little bit more dramatic.
Good morning. So I got up at 5 a.m. this morning to try and catch the sunrise at Bamburgh Castle, where I'm heading. Now that's one of the most iconic views and places in the whole of the UK, but you really, to get it at its best, need to get there for sunrise. That's why I got up at 5 a.m. Left Oscar back there. He's going to get up about 6 or 7. He knows the way, and we'll meet up in a couple of hours. But I really want to get some sunrise pictures, or pictures with the sun lighting it up in this early morning light. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm not sure if already I'm too late. However, it's going to be beautiful, whatever. And as always, it's not always about the final product, because just this is my view on the way getting there. Better take a snap of that.
And out to sea you can see the Farne Islands, famous for its bird life and especially the puffins at the right time of year. And coming up is Bamburgh Castle, that stood here for 1,400 years. Now I had tried to get here for sunrise, obviously I missed that, and I'd wanted that big red sunrise behind the castle. Never mind. But this is what I got. Let me know what you think. And here you can see the first rays of the sun are just lighting the castle up lovely. And within about 100 years of building this castle, we'd been overrun by the Vikings, and they ran this area for about 200 years. And here we are on our penultimate day, and I have to say, it didn't quite go to plan. We've got a journey of more than 20 miles ahead of us, and what we didn't realise was that at the end of one of the beaches that we were going to be going along, they were closed it off because seabirds were nesting, and the little chicks were fledgling, and they closed it off for their safety. Now we could still have done it, but it wasn't clear, and there were big signs saying, "Go back the way you came. No entry allowed." But there was a way where we were allowed to go, but we didn't find it. So we had to backtrack on ourselves. And we ended up getting onto the A1, which is a major road up to Edinburgh, and hitchhiking to our hotel in Bristol, ready for our journey tomorrow. Even though we were tired and a bit fed up, there were still some wonderful sights along the way.
We met Craig and Alice.
Yeah.
And they were doing part of the same walk we were doing. It was nice that we kept bumping into them from time to time, because they were nice people, nice to have a chat with, and we understood each other about what was going on, and I turned round to have a look. What happened twice. We looked at 2 trains go past, 2 fast trains. One was across country, can't remember the other, but they had very long lines that go all the way from somewhere like Aberdeen to Penzance, right across the land basically.
And here is our first view of Lindisfarne Castle and Monastery, which dates back to 635. And people have been walking this route ever since. To get to Holy Island, you can only go when the tide is out. You have to time both your journeys, both in and out. And the causeway is drying off just enough for us to make our start for the final leg of the journey. Though there is a more traditional route across the sands, but we'd have to wait another 2 or 3 hours before we could do that. So we decided to take the easy route. And I think this is a lovely photo to finish with.